Welcome to the 2023 NFL Mock Draft Series here on Forward Progress. Today, the inaugural version, the Dallas Cowboys edition. I am a Dallas Cowboys fan. Now, what I'm going to do today is talk about the Cowboys offseason and how I would approach the draft if I was drafting for the Dallas Cowboys. What can we do to fix the Cowboys this year? Now, not a whole lot needs to be fixed. And I know this is coming from a Dallas Cowboys fan, but I think first and foremost, you have to understand what the betting markets are saying about this team heading into the year. 7-1 to win the NFC. Only two teams have shorter odds in the NFC. The San Francisco 49ers, the Dallas Cowboys, they're as low as 13-1 to win the Super Bowl at FanDuel right now, mostly though in the 16-1 to 17-1 range. I know they had a disappointing year last year, another early playoff exit at the hands of the 49ers, but this is a team that is just a little bit away in the NFC. So it's not something that the Cowboys need to blow up completely. They've made some offseason additions. They traded for Brandon Cooks from the Texans. They gave up draft picks for him. They traded for Stephon Gilmore at corner from the Indianapolis Colts, shoring up positions of need heading into the draft. So let's start there. What does this team still need going into draft season? Pulling up the depth charts for the Dallas Cowboys. Offensively, wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup. Three pretty solid receivers. Gallup coming off of a year where it was a down year for him off of a torn ACL. You'd expect him to improve going forwards. Probably could use a depth receiver there. Any injury to one of the top three, they don't really have the depth. So targeting someone in this receiver draft class in the 2023 draft is up there. Offensive line, aging, Tyron Smith aging, Zach Martin aging. Still big question mark at right tackle if Terrence Steele starts there. They signed Chumu Adoga, who comes in as a depth option for them on the offensive line. Definitely can look to draft someone on the O-line, especially at the guard position, that can fill some future needs for them. Tight end, they lose Dalton Schultz. Jake Ferguson, Peyton Hendershot, they're probably not going to cut it. So either they have to address that with remaining free agents or through the draft. Quarterback, we're probably not going to touch it there unless a quarterback just falls down the depth chart and into our arms. But 2 years, $6 million contract for Cooper Rush. I think they're pretty satisfied with him. Running back, Ronald Jones gets signed. Ezekiel Elliott out the door. Team might still re-sign him in a lesser role. This is the Tony Pollard show. They could probably use another running back, but again, not going to target a running back high up in this draft class. Defensively, DeMarcus Lawrence at one defensive end position, Micah Parsons, strong side linebacker, great pass rushing tandem. Dante Fowler adds some depth there. The issue is on the defensive line and on the interior. I think that's an area where I would certainly be looking to address in this year's draft. Leighton Vander Esch resigns at linebacker, but they did lose Anthony Barr, or at least have not re-signed Anthony Barr. So definitely a positional need both on the defensive line and at linebacker in the front seven. Cornerback, Stephon Gilmore now lines up out opposite side of Trayvon Diggs. Deron Bland was pretty good when he was playing last year. Probably could look for some depth at cornerback. But you'll see it's a pretty complete roster overall. Donovan Wilson re-signs. Jaron Kearse re-signs. Decent safety options altogether. So not a ton of needs going into this draft. Defensive tackle has to be prioritized if a defensive tackle falls into their laps. Or potentially we look at some other point here where we just draft for, forget about need and just basically the best available player on the board. So what we're going to do is open up Pro Football Focus, and we're going to use the mock draft simulator for the purposes of this exercise. And of course, you can check it out, pff.com. So the settings we're going to use, I'm going to draft as the Dallas Cowboys, who have the 26th pick. I'm going to draft 7 rounds for this team. I won't drag it on in the later rounds. And we're just going to use the standard settings. So PFF ranks players. We're going to use closer to a public ranking. Positional value, a little bit less. That's how teams have tended to draft in recent years. Draft for needs, high, the default settings overall. So I'm also going to set this speed to very slow to start just to see what the top overall picks shake up as. We'll enter this draft. The Carolina Panthers are on the clock with the first overall pick, which they acquired from the Chicago Bears. Now, who knows? Maybe they trade that at some other point, but for purposes of drafting now, this is what we got. So we'll start the draft. The Panthers are going to go ahead and they're going to take Bryce Young first overall, and then CJ Stroud. That's expected 1-2 right there. Then we get into Arizona, Jalen Carter on the interior of the defensive line. Will Levis, Kentucky, goes ahead of Tyree Wilson. You would think that Anthony Richardson will pop off the board here pretty soon. Now, there he goes to the Las Vegas Raiders at 7. I'm going to pause. I'm not trading up with Dallas. I'm not trading up with any team because, frankly, I think it's a pretty bad idea. A lot of teams think that they have this, the second coming, the answer, whatever it's going to be. And over time, it's been proven that trading up has been not an effective strategy in the NFL draft. So it's very unlikely that I'm going to stop and trade up at any point. I'm now going to increase the speed to fast here, and we'll resume the draft, and we'll plow through this first round until we get to number 26 overall at the Dallas Cowboys, which is really 25 because the Miami Dolphins forfeited their first round pick. So this is almost best case scenario here for Dallas. You can see PFF identifies the needs for the team as running back, defensive interior, linebacker. I agree a lot with the latter too. I would probably prioritize some cornerback depth, wide receiver depth, maybe some offensive line depth over running back as well. But here we have a case where two teams looking to trade up, the Houston Texans with the 33rd pick, Cleveland Browns 74th. Not really interested in that because we have had an interior defensive lineman fall into our laps here. Public ranked 20th, PFF ranked 24th. And if we open up and look at the analysis, lots of things that look good for Brian Bresee. Versatile player, lines up anywhere on the defensive line. Now, the only issue I have is his run defense grade was pretty poor last year, and that's really where Dallas needs to excel. Probably looking for someone who has a better run defensive grade overall. But with that said, looking at the other options available, could go tackle. Don't think it's a necessity at this point. It would be a bit of a reach to go anyone else here at this point. So I think the options are Brian Bresee or we trade the pick, and I'm fine drafting Bresee here. I think he falls into Dallas's lap, and that ends up being a good pick. So we take him. And we'll roll through here as teams pick through, all the way down to pick 58, which is the next pick for the Cowboys in the second round. And now, again, two teams willing to trade up. So we'll, wouldn't be a big loss here. 2 picks to trade down to Cincinnati. That seems like a very viable option. Tanner McKee, his average draft position, 71.8. Looks like PFF is very high on him. With that said, would be like a little bit of a reach at this point, just scrolling down the draft board. Nathaniel Dell, someone I'm interested in, and wide receiver, but again, a bit of a reach at this point in the draft. Really don't have anyone that stands out as must take. So let's see if we could trade this pick to Cincinnati. They want to move up. Let's see if we could get this 92 somehow and swap a worse pick. So let's start low, 60 and 92 here, and they're not going to take that. So we'll move up and see if we can. And there we go. So we swapped 58 and 129 for 60 and 92. And we're on the clock again after Cincinnati picked a center at that point. Now there's no trade options available here. Now I could propose trades, but it's unlikely that's going to go through if no team's really willing to trade up for the pick. Don't want a quarterback here. I mean, Nathaniel Dell's a tough one because he's probably not going to be available at our next picks, 90 and 92. But it's also a pretty big reach in this spot, as would be Garrett Williams. Scrolling down a little bit further, Andre Carter, edge rusher, not a super big position of need. I don't mind shoring up the offensive line here. Dallas just doesn't have the depth on the O-line right now. And Tyron Smith has proven that he's, very injury prone. That's been an issue for him in the past. So taking a look here, very strong pass blocking grade in college. Does he have comps? Marshall Newhouse. Okay. Quick processor, tons of experience at both tackle positions. This is kind of a really good fit. Tendency to bear hug and pass protection sounds like a few offensive linemen. He was flagged more early in his career. Okay, so, there is some downside. You're going to get that in a prospect at this point. But I think we're going to go ahead and take Matthew Bergeron at tackle from Syracuse, and we can roll him around on the offensive line. Simulating here to pick 90, which is the next Cowboys pick. All right. Okay. So I love that Garrett Williams is still on the board here. I think that's a steal. There are teams willing to trade up, but I don't think we risk letting Garrett Williams slip. Another Syracuse prospect. So that'd be 2 of our first 3 picks from Syracuse. But this is very, very good positional value, especially with where Pro Football Focus has him ranked overall as well. Coverage grade, pretty strong in 2022. Fairly consistent across his 3 years. Shades of Christian Fulton, torn ACL. Injury risk, but this is pick 90 overall now. And because of that, potentially we get a player that's fallen. Can stay in a wide receiver's hip pocket over the full route tree. I like this. So we're going Garrett Williams, cornerback, and drafting him. Now we're on the clock at 92. And this is where we get into a very interesting dilemma, because if there's one position that the Cowboys don't need, it's edge rusher. But with that said, can never have too many edge rushers. And this is a far and away number 1 in terms of average draft position and where PFF ranks him as well. The combo's there. Now, let's see who's willing to trade up. New England. We'd have to go all the way back to 107. Let's take a look at Andre Carter from Army here and see. Very consistent overall grades across his bets. Shades of Max Crosby. I don't know about that from a 3rd-round pick, but smooth mover for a man his size, moves like a tight end. I think we're going to go Andre Carter here. I think this is the best option, even though it doesn't fill a position of need. You can never have too many edge rushers. Andre Carter II coming to the Dallas Cowboys. So we're going to have a really long gap here because of our traded pick, all the way down to 169, which will be, I believe, in round 5. As a bunch of players are going off the board here. So would be nice to draft a depth receiver if possible. But really, at this point, just looking for bargains. Anyone who might have fallen in the draft, maybe running back at this point as well. So we get here a couple edge rushers available. Yasir Abdullah from Louisville. Viliami Fehoko from San Jose State. In terms of positional need, a couple that stand out. So we have Jalen Moreno-Cropper, Fresno State, and Davis Allen, tight end of Clemson. Dallas does have a glaring tight end issue right now. Now, are these impact players? No, not going to come in right away. From that point of view, I'm not even too interested in going through their comparables or anything like that. It's more so he's a body, fits a position of need at this point, drafting for value. We're going to go Jalen Moreno-Cropper, wide receiver, Fresno State, just to add some depth to that position, because Dallas can ill afford an injury at receiver. Brandon Cooks has had concussion issues. Michael Gallup, a year removed from a torn ACL as well. You never know what you're going to get. So more receivers, the merrier for the Cowboys. Late round picks here. There are people willing to trade up, but it's not much. Let's see if anyone, Aiden O'Connell from Purdue, PFF has him ranked very high. It would be a project, definitely, for the Cowboys if we're going to go Aiden O'Connell at this point. Who's our 3rd quarterback? It's Will Grier, who's really never amounted to anything. So it's not a horrible idea to go QB at this point. Jake Andrews, center on the offensive line. Not a whole lot here that I love. that stands out to me at this point. So maybe we trade back or see what Philly's willing to give up, possibly a round 7 next year, of course. Maybe 2 round 7s, unlikely. Can we get a round 6? No. I don't think that this is going to be a valuable trade in any capacity for the Cowboys. Rams in the same spot. So let's go ahead and take a project quarterback. Aiden O'Connell. Who knows what you get out of him at this point? I haven't seen a ton of Aiden O'Connell, but the expectation is very low, and maybe you catch lightning in a bottle a la Tom Brady. Final round. We got options here. Definitely not going another quarterback. We could go running back. I mean, really could go anyone here that provides value. Jervarius Owens, Houston, safety. I like the idea of adding a linebacker to the mix. Aubrey Miller Jr., Jackson State. Likely going to be the pick here just because of positional need, drafting for depth. So Aubrey Miller Jr., final pick for the Cowboys at 27th pick of the 7th round. And that's pretty much going to conclude the draft here. PFF's going to give me a rating in terms of how they think I did. Now, remember, this is based off of their own, positional needs and all sorts of stuff that goes through their algorithm. Like the first round pick. Not a huge fan of the trade. That's the lowest score I had there. But I thought that was decently value, decent value in return for dropping down 2 spots. You basically move up a full round. There wasn't a player on the board that we were targeting there. Overall, they're pretty happy with it. Overall draft grade of an A for the Dallas Cowboys. We address the interior of the defensive line in the first round. We add some depth on the O-line, get a corner, another edge rusher, a great edge rusher, PFF big board 52nd, and we draft them 92 overall, add some wide receiver depth, add a linebacker. Probably still need another linebacker and a tight end, but overall, pretty decent job, I think, of drafting for the Dallas Cowboys in the 2023 NFL draft. Let me know who you draft in the Cowboys position. If you're on the clock, anyone that you vehemently disagree with, that you think I should have went in another way, tried to trade a pick, let me know in the comments below. And for all of our show updates here on Forward Progress, make sure you're following at Forward Progress HQ on Twitter and subscribe to the channel. We're doing a lot more of these mock drafts leading up to the draft, different teams, how I would approach it. Hit that subscribe button. You'll get notified whenever there's a new video. And if you like the content I put out here today, make sure you hit the like button as well. This has been the 2023 NFL mock draft for the Dallas Cowboys. Thank you for tuning in to Forward Progress on the Hammer Betting Network.